Okay, this video is going to be about pedal power, voltages, and milliamps, what that even means, and why we need to know what it means to properly power our pedals, because we can literally break our pedals if we don't know how to properly power them. I'm also going to go over daisy chaining, how to properly do that, and more importantly, how to properly select the appropriate power supply to feed a chain of pedals, and kind of how to decode what's going on these power supplies and what you need to know, and then also how to find out how much power your pedal requires, and where to look for that, because not all pedals just say that information on the pedal. I'm also going to go over power supplies like this one, why you would maybe want to graduate from daisy chaining to using power supplies like this, the benefits and kind of how it works, and then also the benefits of investing hundreds of dollars in these really expensive power supplies, and why they get so expensive, and what kind of features come with it that brings up the price on those, and whether or not it might be a good investment for you if you're looking for one. So when I was new to pedals, I didn't pay attention to the power at all. I just had these, I had collected these over some time, and I kind of just plugged in power sources that I had available to me into my pedals and like hoped it worked. So if that sounds like you, or you're just interested in learning about the voltages and milliamp situation with pedals, then this video is definitely for you. And by the end of it, you will have a full understanding of voltages and milliamps, and more importantly, how to properly power your pedals. So first, we need to know what our pedals power requirements are. So let's decode this information. Pedals usually don't have the power requirements just on the pedal. TC Electronic was nice enough to give it to us, but most of the time it's not on the pedal, and I'll get into how you find it later. But how you read this is this symbol right here. It says center negative, and what that means is the center pin in this jack right here, that center pin in the middle right there, that's the negative ground pin, and the surrounding lining of this jack is the positive. So you're going to need a center negative tip to make the proper electrical connection. A center negative tip into a center negative jack so that it can make the proper electrical connection. But I'm not going to get super into this. Most pedals are center negative. That's why when you buy daisy chains like this, or the power supplies, they come with all center negative tips, because it's just so much more common for pedals to be center negative. And if you're new and you have just like 3 or 4 pedals, and I'm guarantee you they're all center negative, but just so you do know what that means, it tells you the electrical connection that's required, and so that the center pin is the ground, and the outside is the positive. But just so you have a reference, this is the H90 by Eventide, and this is a center positive jack. So see, it says center positive instead of center negative. This is a center positive, so it's a different requirement, but don't worry about that too much. Most are going to be center negative, but that is something good to know. So it says here that this pedal requires 9 volts DC power at 100 milliamps. That's what that MA stands for. So if you're going to take one thing away from this video, take this one thing right here. Never over volt. You can over milliamp, but never over volt. Okay? So 9 volts is what this pedal requires. Don't feed it 12 volts or anything more than 9 volts. If you feed it less, it's just you're not going to give it enough electricity and it just won't work properly. But don't feed it more. Feed it 9 volts. Okay, you can feed it more milliamps than 100, but don't feed it more than 9 volts. That's how you break your pedal. So that's the one thing you need to remember. Don't overvolt. You can over milliamp, but don't overvolt. So that's at 9 volts 100. This is at 9 volts as well, but at 300 milliamps. Okay, so 9 volts 300, 9 volts 100. So if you're daisy chaining, you don't need to know all of this information or what it means. What I do is I check the output. Okay, the output, as long as it says 9 volts and all your pedals that you want to power are 9 volts, then that is safe. You are safe to use this supply to power these pedals. If you have a pedal that is 18 volts or 12 volts, then this isn't going to be enough power for that. If this power supply, the output said 18 volts, if it said 18 instead of 9 in the output, and I fed it into these 9 volt pedals, that's how you break these 9 volt pedals, is you feed it more voltages. So the one thing to take away from this video, once again, is never overvolt. As long as you know that and remember it, then you're fine, you're safe. But now we get into the milliamps. So this is where it kind of gets annoying, because if you have like 5 or 6 pedals, then you need to know how many milliamps are in each of your pedal, because this power supply supplies 850 milliamps. Okay, so first we know these pedals are both 9 volts, and this is a 9 volt supply, so we're safe there. Now, do I have enough milliamps in this supply to feed these 2 pedals? And the answer is yes, because 100 milliamps for this one and 300 milliamps for this one, so a total of 400 milliamps. I have plenty of milliamps in this to power these pedals. So that's why you need to know how many milliamps are in each pedal, because if you're using one power supply like this and daisy chaining it, then you need to know how many milliamps that this is putting out and how many milliamps are total in your pedals. So I mean, that's honestly it. As long as you understand that the never overvolt, you can over milliamp, but you need to add up all the milliamps in all the pedals that you're using so that you know that you have enough. If you feed, if you don't, sometimes power supplies, I hate when they do this, sometimes power supplies don't give you the amount of milliamps that it's producing. It'll always give you the voltages of the output, which is the most important part, but it won't give you the milliamps. And unfortunately, the only way you kind of find out is you just, as long as you know that you have 9 volt pedals, like this is a 9 volt supply, as long as you have like, if you have like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 9 volt pedals, and you know they're 9 volts, and you know this is 9 volts, then you can just kind of plug in and say you have a 6 piece daisy chain, and see if it'll power all 6. If it powers all 6, then you know it has enough milliamps to power all 6. And that's a safe way to test it, because you can over milliamp, but you can't over volt. So if you're going to do that, make sure that your pedals, all 6 of your pedals, are 9 volts, and this is a 9 volt. Okay, so that's kind of how, if it doesn't say the milliamps on there, which sometimes it doesn't, and I don't understand why they don't give you that information sometimes, but if it doesn't, then that's how I troubleshoot. That's how I kind of figure out how many milliamps it is. I don't ever find out how many milliamps, but I find out how many pedals I can actually power with it, because eventually, if you power enough pedals, then one of them won't work, or 2 of them won't work, and then once they stop working, then you know you're trying to feed too many pedals with the milliamps, and nothing will happen because it's milliamps. As long as they're all the same voltages, and the same voltages as the one that it says on the power supply, then you're safe. You can experiment with how many pedals you want safely, as long as they're all the same voltages that are on the power supply you're using. Okay, so how do you know your pedals power requirements if it doesn't say it on the pedals like these two do? Well, the instruction manuals are going to have it most of the time. If they don't, then you're going to have to check the website and check the specs. I know that sounds like a hassle. If you have like 6 or 7 pedals right now and you don't know any of the power requirements on them, then yes, the bummer answer is you're going to have to go to the websites or the instruction manuals and look. What I do is I keep a log, or on my notes app on my phone, I keep a log of all my pedal power because I have a lot of pedals and I'm not remembering all of them by heart, you know? So, but at first, at least this was my experience, at first, when I realized I had to pay attention to all these numbers and I had to keep track and it mattered what these numbers meant, it was kind of a bummer that now I had to keep track of that. And that is unfortunately what you have to do to power your pedals properly. But I promise, after you do it more, it becomes habit and you don't even think about it. It's not a hassle at all anymore because you check before you even purchase a pedal. So it's just part of the pedal purchasing process. So it is unfortunate that you do have to go and find this information now, and then hopefully you write it down or log it in your phone or something like that, so that you have that and you don't have to keep looking it up if you forget. But that is what you have to do. But I promise it does just become a habit, and it's not a big deal at all. It doesn't even, I don't even notice it anymore. So that's how you find your pedal, and your power. If it's not on the website, it should be on the website. It should be. If you're not finding it, then look harder. But if it's not, or you just can't find it, then you will have to email them directly, the company, and ask. But honestly, that never happens. Like, it's always on the website. It's got to be there somewhere. So you're not going to have to email anybody. But like, if for some reason you can't find it on the website, then you would have to email them directly. And if it's a company like Walrus Audio, they reply like same day to next day, so it's really quick. But anyways, that's how you find out what power is required of your pedals if it doesn't say it on the pedal itself. So if you want to stop using daisy chain, or you have already stopped and you are using a power supply like this but aren't really paying attention to the information that's given to you, then let's go over power supplies. So this is a $40 power supply on Amazon made by Donner. It works great as a perfect starter power supply. And how it works is you plug it into the wall. It feeds this brick electricity, and then it routes electricity to power your pedals. It has 10 outputs, and it comes with 10 little cables. And it's a really useful, safer way to power your pedals. Also, it's cleaner, meaning each output is individually isolated, which means that it's much quieter. It's not sharing the same one route. The electricity isn't going through the same one cable to power multiple pedals. It's got each output has its own individually isolated like route for the electricity to take, which causes it to be safer and more quiet and just a cleaner experience and better. And it also gives you more power options, so you can power different kinds of pedals. But let's take this one right here. All power supplies are going to come with this information in some way or another, but this one gives it to us right here on the brick, which is really useful, but we need to know how to read it. So how this works is, first the first box is how much power this brick requires, and that's 18 volt DC power. This is the center negative symbol again, and it comes with a power supply, so we're safe with that. This first long box, 1 through 8, says is 9 volts. Okay, DC, and then here's another center negative, but 9 volts. 1 through 8 produces 9 volts. But if you look on top, 1 through 7 is 100 milliamps, and then 8 is still 9 volts, but at 500 milliamps. And then the last two are 12 volts and 18 volts, both center negative symbols again. So, for this power supply, if we want to power these pedals, let's just say Hall of Fame 2, if you remember, it's 9 volts and 100 milliamps. That's perfect because I have this cable in slot 6, which is 9 volts and 100 milliamps. So that's exactly what this pedal requires. So I can definitely use 1 through 7 because 1 through 7 is 9 volts and 100 milliamps. But what if I put it in slot 8? If you remember, don't overvolt. You can over milliamp, but you can't overvolt. Then this is 9 volts. 8 is still a 9 volt slot, but at 500 milliamps, which is more than what's required. But remember, you can over milliamp. You just can't over volt. So slot 8 is totally safe. 9 volts, 500. It's more than 100, but that's safe because it's milliamps. But if I accidentally put it in the 12 volt slot, which is the 9th slot, that's more than 9 volts. And so that's a good way to break your pedal. So it's important that we understand that you don't overvolt. You can over milliamp, but you can't overvolt. And this is actually a perfect example of why you might want to invest in a more expensive power supply, because see how easy it is to accidentally break your pedal? You can accidentally put this in the 12 volt and plug it into a 9 volt, and then it's broken. So I'm just going to put that in 6 just to be safe. And so that's why you might want to invest in a more expensive power supply. This is like a $350 power supply, which might seem like absurd to a lot of people, but let's just go over the two main features that make this worth the price, at least in my opinion. And that's, first, this information it gives us right here. It has 7 outputs. This actually has 10. This has less, but it says right here, at 9 volt DC power, it'll give us 660 milliamps. That's a 6. It looks like a 3, but it's a 6. 660 milliamps at 9 volts. And to get 9 volts, we need to put the dip switches in the down position. Okay, to get 12 volts DC, and that'll give us 500 milliamps, we need to put the dip switches in this configuration. Okay, so, and 15 and 18. So in 9 volts, most pedals are going to be 9 volts, not all, but most. So 9 volts, and I can do this, I can do dip switch configurations to all of the outputs that are on this supply. So that means all of these outputs, all 7 of these outputs at 9 volts, bring out 660 milliamps. I could power 6 of these pedals in just one of this output, because this is 100 milliamps, and this gives 660. So that's a whole, that's a whole lot. So each output, yeah, in this one, 1 through 7 only gives 100 milliamps. And then one of them only gives 500 milliamps. So I could power 5 of these in this 500 milliamps, but here I could do 6 of these in all of these outputs. So that's a lot. That's plenty of milliamps per output. That's just a lot. But the awesome part of this power supply is the internal safety net that comes with it. And what I mean by that is, so this says if I want 18 volts, I put the dip switch, both of them, in the up position. So on number 7, both of these are in the up position. That means this is going to produce 18 volts. If I supply a 18 volt pedal with number 7 right here, and then I decide I want to get rid of that, and then I want to power this pedal that's 9 volts, and I forget to move the dip switches back to 9 volts, which is in the down position, and I plug it in and I plug this pedal into the 18 volt, then there's an internal like switch that completely cuts this off, and it won't let you supply the 9 volt with 18 volt. It won't let you overvolt. It has a safety feature in there that'll cut off the output and not let you accidentally feed your pedal or overvolt your pedals. So with this, you literally don't have to worry about it. It'll cut it off for you. There's many other reasons. I mean, the LED light indicators get brighter as more power you're using per output. It also has this little scale right here. It'll tell you how much of this entire thing you're using, if you're using, you know, like 20 pedals or something like that. And also it is made of a lot more durable material, and it's thinner, and it fits perfectly in pedal boards, which is what I use. And it comes with like accessories to kind of clamp onto pedal boards as well. So and those are just the main things that I can think of. That's why power supplies get up to hundreds of dollars. It's the design, it's the features, and then obviously it's the features, but then it's also that safety net that you know you have. So that's why these pedals get, these power supplies get pretty darn expensive. And just to go over this pedal right here, some pedals will say 9 through 18 volts. That means 9 volts is the minimum it can take. 18 volts is the maximum. And you can feed it anything in between. Okay, so I can feed it 12 volts because it's in between 9 and 18. 18 is the maximum, and you're going to get the most out of it. 9 is the minimum. So if you only have 9 volts available, then it will work. It just gives you options, because most pedals are 9 volts. So they probably thought, you know, we should probably give it the option to, you know, work on 9 volts, because mainly people have 9 volt supplies, so they want it to be able to work if somebody just only has 9 volts. So that's very nice, but it takes 18 volts maximum, and you'll get the most out of the effect with that. So some pedals do that as well. It'll say 9 through 12 volts. So if you see that, that's what that means. 9 is the minimum, and then the 12 is the max, or in this case, the 18 is the max, and you can do anything in between, and you're going to get the most out of the higher number. So I think that is it. If there is anything else that I forgot or I left out, or there's anything else that you are curious about, then please leave a comment. I'd love to answer any questions. And yeah, I think that's it. And thanks for watching. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one.